Hot yoga and professional athletes, how I got to teach the Miami Dolphins, the Marlins, the Miami Heat, the Florida Panthers, and some of my experiences with them. That's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get started. Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Barkan. If this is the first time we're meeting, I've been teaching hot yoga since 1981. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hit the notification bell, smash the like button anytime you're enjoying the content of this video, and share it with your friends. How did I get to teach all of these professional athletes? Because I work with every single team in South Florida. I didn't start knocking on the door to the Miami Dolphins and say, hey guys, I want to teach you hot yoga. They wouldn't let me in. The security was really tight. It was through a personal contact. So one of my good friends was a student of mine back in the old days. His niece was married to a professional baseball player. His name was Leiter, and he was a player for the Toronto Blue Jays. He had come to the class and enjoyed a few of the classes. And his good friend was Jeff Ulnick. So Jeff Ulnick was the center at the time for the Miami Dolphins football team. If you're not a football fan or understand the game, the center is the one that hikes the ball to the quarterback. What's interesting about the centers, and I taught another center after Jeff left, a guy named Tim Ruddy, both of them had extreme hip range of motion because they had to squat down to hike the ball, unlike the other linemen that had a really rough time because they were so stiff. We used to do the eagle pose, and they were so muscular that they couldn't get their hands together like this. But the linemen, we almost didn't do the eagle pose. They would do elbow to wrist. That's about as far as they could go because they were so muscular. So Jeff Ulnick comes to my class, and he enjoys it. He had that range of motion in his hips. It was a little easier for him to do than the other big guys. He went back to the Dolphin facility, started showing them the yoga postures. And the trainer at the time, his name was Ryan Vermillion. The light bulb went on his head. He says, you know what? I got to get my players doing this yoga. So the next day he calls me. He says, I'd like to bring in my players. And they came in and they started doing yoga in the hot room, and they really enjoyed it. And one of those players was Dan Marino. Again, if you're not a football fan, one of the greatest quarterbacks, not just of the Dolphins, but of all time, of any team. Arguably one of the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks ever to play the game. And he was just coming off a very serious injury. He had an Achilles tendon injury, which is down by the ankle, by the heel. So he had to use the wall at first to balance. We do a lot of balancing postures in hot yoga, like standing head to knee, standing bow. He had to go against the wall because he was still rehabbing and a lot of pain. Slowly, we got him away from the wall. In a very short period of time, he had this, I believe, through hot yoga, a miraculous comeback. In 1994, he wins NFL Comeback Player of the Year. And he'd said hot yoga was more therapeutic than all the physical therapy he did put together. And he ended up, he built a huge house out in Weston, and the designer came to our school because he wanted to build a yoga room for his house because he liked it so much. But a couple months later, Ryan Vermillion calls me again. He says, we're going to clear out a storage room at our facility in Nova University. That's where the Dolphins had their training camp. And we want to make it a little yoga room for you. Could you come in the afternoons and teach the guys? And I said, you know what? Let me check my schedule. I'm not sure if I can fit it in. Just kidding. I was very excited. So I went out to teach the Dolphins in the afternoon. And one of the players that was very much into it was a guy named Terry Kirby. Now, I was brought up in Pittsburgh, so I was a Pittsburgh Steelers football fan. But I've been in South Florida for a lot longer than I lived in Pittsburgh, so I became a Dolphins fan. But when you know the players and you're teaching them and you're working with them on a daily basis, you become a different kind of fan. You become very attached to the players. So there was one play where Terry Kirby, he was a running back, they handed him the ball, and he blew out his knee. And I'm watching it on TV, and I'm like, no, oh my God. His body went one way, the knee went the other way. But he still had the smarts to come back after his surgery and continue the rehab. And I had the privilege of being featured doing yoga with Dan Marino in Sports Illustrated and then again in Yoga Journal. And Dan was very, very gracious, very generous, never questioned me except for this one time. Let me tell you the story. We're doing a posture called Pashimotanasana. And Dan's got the wrong grip. And I said, Dan, take your index and middle finger, grab the big toe to pull that way. And he says, Jim, I hear what you're saying, but if I hold this way, I think I can get a better stretch. So I say to Dan, imagine we're in a football quarterback clinic and you're showing me how to throw the ball. And I say, Dan, I hear what you're saying, but if I hold the ball this way, I think I can throw it much better. Imagine I'm the Dan Marino of yoga, and this is the grip. He got it, never questioned me again. Now, I haven't worked with Miami Dolphins since 2007, but recently, in fact, last weekend, I was at a football game, a Miami Dolphins game, and we got there early, and I'm watching their warm-up. And the guy that was leading them in the stretch, I mean, some of the things were good, but they were doing too much of this repetitive motion, not holding and stretching. And then he put them in downward dog, and most of them didn't know how to do it right. There's sort of like a forward push-up. And I wanted to run to the field and say, no, no, no. You can get so much better of a warm-up if you were to follow me. So just throwing that out there. Maybe the Miami Dolphins will hear this YouTube video and give me a call again. You never know. Now, most of the Miami Dolphins, in fact, all the Miami Dolphins refused to do yoga when the season started because the season was so physically demanding, except for one guy, Todd Wade. So Todd Wade was a huge lineman, 6'10", 370 pounds. You can look it up on Google. An all-pro, I think he was an all-pro lineman. And he would come in Mondays during the season. That was their day off. Coming off Sunday was the game. And he would bring in these 2 big liters of Gatorade and drink them in the first 20 minutes. The guy was massive. So he would do yoga with me every Monday during the season. He said on Tuesday, they'd go back to the training facility, and he was the only lineman that could squat down in what they call a 3-point stance because everyone was so sore from Sunday. Because of his Monday yoga, he was able to have so much more range of motion, and he believed it also lengthened his career. So now right around the same time, I get a phone call from one of the players of the basketball team, the Miami Heat, and he was the center. If you're not a basketball fan, he's the tallest guy on the team. And he said, I wanted you to come to my house and teach me yoga, teach me hot yoga. And I said, how'd you find out about me? His good friend was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, maybe the best center that ever played the game, arguably. And he was a student of Bikram's. And I'd actually taught Kareem Abdul-Jabbar when I was teaching in L.A. with Bikram. And in fact, Kareem's son actually went out and became a Bikram yoga teacher. But Kareem told Ronnie to give me a call because he knew I was in South Florida. So I went to Ronnie Slyke's house, and he lived in this very exclusive island in Miami called Star Island. He lived a couple doors down from Gloria Estefan. And in fact, later on, he sold his house to Shaquille O'Neal. So I was teaching Ronnie Slyke in Shaq's house before he even bought it. But Ronnie had a sauna. So we'd sit in the sauna in his house, and then we go out and we would do yoga. And a couple times he brought a few of the players to his house, and they did yoga with us. And I found that the NBA players were the stiffest of all of the professional athletes because they were so tall, number one, and very little body fat. So they had a very fast metabolism. It was much harder for them to stretch their bodies, but also so important that to do it. The taller you are, the bigger you are, the harder it is to do yoga. Bikram would always say that about me. I'd come back to LA and I'd be doing standing head to knee. He says, look at that. You know how hard it is to do yoga in that big body, because I was always a big bone guy. So doing yoga in a tall, big body. But when that tall person can do it well, they look so much better because the limbs are long, and it's just very dramatic and very elegant, very graceful. So let's go back to the baseball team. So now Leiter is traded from the Toronto Blue Jays not traded, I think he's picked up as a free agent, to the Miami Marlins. Back then they were the Florida Marlins. This is 96, 97. So he arranged, not the team, but he and a few of the players like Jeff Conine, Kurt Abbott, Rod Nen, and the trainer was Rick Slate. And also the photographer for the Marlins was doing yoga with us. That's how I got this picture, by the way, because he said, why don't we take a picture of everybody? So Leiter got these players and some other ones to do yoga, and I would come to the stadium and teach them yoga at the stadium. And then Jeff Conine really got into it, and I would sometimes come right before the game to stretch him out. I remember the very first time I was stretching out Jeff Conine, he played third base at the time. The very first time I came to teach him right before the game, his first at bat, he hits a home run. And I said to myself, I got to take credit for that home run. No question. But like I said before, it wasn't the Florida Marlins organization that hired me. It was the players. And that year that I worked with them in 1997, anybody's a baseball fan, they won the World Series. Do I take credit for that too? Who knows? But what happened was there was a garage sale at the end of that season. All the players that I taught were traded out or sold to other teams. So that was the end of my experience with the Florida Marlins. So I opened my second studio in Plantation, Florida. And Plantation was very close to the Florida Panthers hockey team's training camp. And they had found out about hot yoga and they started coming. I didn't really have a connection with any of the players. I remember I was talking to one of them in the dressing room after class, and he said to me, every time I do a class, I think I'm adding months onto my career because of the longevity that this range of motion is going to give my body. My last experience with professional teams was in 2006, again with the Miami Dolphins, but a whole different group and a whole different organization. One of my teachers lived next door to the quarterback coach. For the you football fans, his name was Jason Garrett. He ended up becoming the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. So they ended up coming to my school in Plantation because it was closer to the Miami Dolphins training camp. And that's when I worked with players like Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas. Zach Thomas, one of the best linebackers that ever played the game. Big, strong guy, and he said to me it was the hardest exercise he'd ever done in his life. So let's talk about why that is. Because what's happening in hot yoga is we're going against the grain. You take a really flexible person and you take them into the weight room and have them lift weights, they're going to die. You take that bodybuilding person and you have them stretch their body, they're used to just working to strengthen the muscle, they're going to die. So the combination of the flexibility and strength, which is also relevant for dancers and gymnastics, is why hot yoga is so great for athletes. My teacher's teacher, Vishnu Ghosh, you can see here how ripped he was when he was young, because his thing wasn't just yoga. His thing was combining weight training and bodybuilding with the stretching, with the hot yoga. It was the combination of the two. And even this picture here of Bikram, when he was 18 years old, you can see how ripped he was because he was big time into weight training. So it makes sense that we add range of motion to the body and to the muscles, one, to prevent injury, and two, this range of motion is going to allow you to become a better athlete. So working with all the professional athletes was definitely a highlight for my career. I hope you enjoy these stories. That's our episode for today. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell. You get notified when I post a video. Share it with your friends. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.